Dionne, the Bears are back. We are finally talking about training camp. But the only thing that could trump that is the craziest baseball trade deadline day that I've ever experienced. How are you feeling at the moment?
That's a loaded question, Dionne. It's a loaded question on a lot of levels. Number one, you and I were going to shoot a video at Hellas Hall on Friday, and you had to fly in your car down to the South Side to take tabs on what's going on for one baseball team that's trying to go after a World Series championship this year. Meanwhile, much of the city is mourning the loss of their favorite players on the other side of the city. How do we even get into this? I know that I can share some stories from home. I'm sure you've got some of your own. Is that where we start with the kids? Do we start about the
I'll
kids?
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't ready. We all knew it was coming. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready Thursday when Rizzo went, and that was most devastating in my home because my child models his game after number 44 of the Cubs. Yep. And that was, he's got the poster and he's got the jersey, and it was kind of like, wait, what is happening? Was how that unfolded. And in his little brain was like, well, at least Javy's still there, and at least Kris Bryant is still there. And then that happened, and it was, wait a minute, what? Yes. I mean, a lot of not even knowing who our favorite players are going to be now. What are we even going to the games for? That kind of conversation.
Insane, like literally insane. And Ryan, the two jerseys he owns are Anthony Rizzo and Javy Baez. I believe Rizzo was kind of the guy who sparked his love for the game, right? And used to request the walk-up music in the car. We've got it on a CD. We've got Rizzo's Intoxicated on there. We used to play it in the car all the time, and then you'd hear it. Sometimes you'd be doing something around the house and come on, you'd be like, Dad, Rizzo's batting. We'd run down there. Javy over time surpassed Rizzo as his favorite player, mostly because guess who you can YouTube really easily? Javy Baez. You want Javy Baez tag highlights? You want Javy Baez sliding highlights? You want Javy Baez hitting highlights? They're all available for you. And so if you're 8 years old and you're trying to find something that electrifies you about baseball, guess what? It's Javy Baez. So that's a long way of telling you that on I guess it would have been Thursday night, the Rizzo trade was kind of like, oh man, that's rough.
Ouch.
And then I come home Friday from Hellas Hall, and he was sitting on the couch watching TV, and I said, well, they traded everybody. And he looked at me and he said, even Javy?
Oh.
And I said, even Javy. And Dionne, his face went blank, and he started crying so hard that he couldn't make a sound. It was one of those breathless cries where it was just, he couldn't make a sound. And then he stopped, and he asked me a great question here. He said, do they at least still have Patrick Wisdom? And I said, they do still at least have Patrick Wisdom. And then he said, okay, good, because he hits a lot of homers. And then a couple minutes later, he just started crying again. And then he gathered himself and he started crying again. And I was like, oh my God, this is beyond what I thought it was going to be in terms of the crushing level of it. By the end of Friday night, he was asking me how we could watch Mets games. And so my brother, who has the Major League Baseball app, is trying to help us figure out a way to get Mets games here on the TV here. But it is, I was going on 8 when the Cubs lost the NLCS to the Padres in 1984. And I always refer to it as the Goodwill Hunting talk, because my dad had to take me on a long walk around our neighborhood park telling me, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. As I was bawling. And this is where this moment took me back to, where I have my own 8-year-old on the couch crying uncontrollably because his favorite players, multiple are gone. Poof, just like that. Yeah. And his love for baseball is like, what do I do with this? How do I process it? You and I both know, like, practically we can see what Jed Hoyer saw and say, okay, we knew this was coming. It wasn't working. The Cubs weren't winning. But the devastation for 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds around the city, I can't do it. I
can't process it for them either. No, and even my daughter at 7 had one favorite player. She had one Cubs jersey, a pink one, and it was Javier Baez. She has one bobblehead in her room, and it's Javier Baez. And she was very confused about the whole thing when she was talking to me about it today. I was like, honey, Javy doesn't play for the Cubs anymore. And she's back, like in her brain, she heard us talking about it, but didn't really like understand. And she was like, well, what about Anthony Rizzo? I was like, no, not him either. She's like, well, who's going to be my favorite player? And I was like, I don't know. Let's look at the roster and pick.
I know.
I mean, it's different. Now, I will say we had a magical moment. We were there last Monday night when they beat the Reds, and Rizzo hit a 2-run homer for him and KB, and Javy came in and walked it off in the ninth, and it was magical. It was a magic moment that I feel like is now this treasure that we get to have, because who knew that would be their last victory at Wrigley, and who knew that would be like Javy's last at bat at Wrigley, and we got to be there for it. So it was there's some memories there that are going to be really cool, but we're not taking down the Rizzo stuff at our house. I'm wondering, what are all those sports stores going to do with all that stuff?
What do we do? What do we do? My son was 3 when they won the World Series. You obviously were much closer to that story as a reporter than I was, and experienced that stuff up close. And so we were going back through, he doesn't remember much of 2016, but we were going back through highlights last night, and we were watching clips from the parade, which you were a part of, obviously. And he had never realized that Michigan Avenue was flooded the way it was flooded. Grant Park was flooded the way it was flooded. And we're watching this combination of parade highlights and World Series highlights, and I broke out. Right now, it's happening to me right now, head to toe, full body goosebumps the size of golf balls. And he looked at me and he goes, "How do you get goosebumps?" And I was like, man, you got to have some really, really powerful moments in life. And then you think of them, and then it just happens. And it was just like, it kept happening. We had like an hour therapy session of just watching things, right? And to your credit, to your point of going to that game last week, we went to a game on Memorial Day. I think it was on Memorial Day. Javy hit 2 home runs. One of them was that deep one over the batter's eye in center field. That was as far as I've hit a ball since Sammy was all roided up and jacking things out to Wrigley. And so you say, like, that's awesome. The last game that we went to that he got to see Javy play, and Javy hit 2 bombs, and we were going crazy. Awesome. And it's just like, that's it. But then you put it in a shoebox and you say, that relationship is kind of over, and we got to deal with the breakup.
Well, I have a cure-all for him to be able to watch Mets games. We will discuss that off air, because I'm wondering when we'll start having those goosebumps for our Bears again. What are your early observations from these first few faster practices? I mean, I noticed the tempo, and it's been fun to watch. What are your thoughts early?
Well, let me start with this, because we ended our last series of videos talking about what it would be like to be back out in person, inside the media room at House and all. I can tell you at the end of the first week that the invigoration that I feel is everything I wanted it to be and a little bit more. I knew I missed the media room. I didn't know I missed it to the extent that I missed it. I knew I missed in-person dialogue with the coaches and players we cover. Cole Kmet came in the other day, Darnell Mooney, Jalen Johnson. These guys were all rookies last year. We have never spoken to them in person. And so to have that interaction and then have a conversation, with these guys, obviously it's a group setting. And so you're going back and forth, but there's something truly invigorating about it. And it allows you to learn about the team at a much deeper level, much more quickly than we had last year. And I just feel that coming back, it's like that fuel tank needle is just going, like in terms of, I feel like I know this team better a week later than I did last week at this time, all because we're able to get in that room, do a little shtick with the guys, tell some jokes, Maggie, go back and forth. All that stuff is at the top of my radar. The other thing that I'm going to tell you is just off the top, since everybody wants to know about the quarterback position, Andy Dalton's all right, and I'm not going to stand up and sell you that he's going to be an all-pro this year, that he's going to lead the Bears to 13 wins and they're going to be back in the playoffs. But Andy Dalton's all right compared to what we saw from Bears quarterbacks in training camp 2020.
Right.
This is above that. And there's a steadiness there. And what you hear from coaches and players is that steadiness has become infectious. There's a calm that, even though this is still a work in progress offense, Andy knows where to go with the football. He knows what this offense is designed to do. It's helpful. It helps when Justin Fields along at a different rate. And it just gives the rest of these guys who have to make plays now until Justin Fields is ready, confident that their guy under center knows what to do.
Andy Dalton is not a project. He is, there is no indecision. Yes, I understand. They are not even in pads and they're just running through drills, but there's no hesitation, right? Like everything he does, he does it with a confidence that's like, I've done this already. And we've spent the last 4 years watching a quarterback come along that had not only never done it before, but still couldn't do it the way they wanted him to. So to see that, it's such a stark difference. Even Nagy talked about it on Friday, that how different it is to look at to have a quarterback like that in the room, who is just got it. He's just got it. He's such a vet. And even when Darnell Mooney said, he's a vet. You can tell he's a vet. And it's just something they haven't had around. And I agree with you on that. Andy Dalton is all right. The offense is in good hands to start the season with him. And then that allows Matt to pour more into Justin the way that he needs to, and into getting him to step up into that realm as well. And I think he can. I think he's shown a little bit. They both have had their bumps this week. That's just what it is what it is going to be. But I think that this is headed in the right direction.
There were a couple throws Andy made in the team setting on Saturday morning where they're basic throws. You'll never see them on YouTube. You'll never see them on the 5 o'clock news on ABC 7. They're basic throws. Slant route to Allen Robinson, right? Nothing difficult about it, nothing special about it, but it's on time. It's on target. The ball moves. The offense keeps going. And all of a sudden you say, okay, that's a very basic play, but it was executed precisely. And now Pat O'Donnell doesn't have to rush his butt out onto the field to punt the ball away, right? Those are the things that are going to happen. With Justin, there have been moments, right? Like you see, the one thing that you like about Justin Fields overall is he's fearless, right? And there's an ability to be fearless with where he delivers the ball and the chances he takes that I just absolutely love right now. He throws the ball with a Cutler-esque velocity. And I tweeted this earlier that, listen, Jay was similar in terms of the fearlessness and the way he could throw fastballs to guys. And you have to learn to harness that, because it got Jay in trouble sometimes because he thought he could fit every throw in and then there were turnovers. But there's something special about watching a ball whistle off a quarterback's hands. And Fields has had a few of those throws this week where you say, yeah, that's pretty special. And then you watch him run and he's fast. And Matt Nagy joked the other day that Andy Dalton looked at Justin Fields in one of the quarterback meetings and said, what's it like to run a 4.4? You know, something that Andy and Nick will never know, but Justin has that. And so now all of a sudden the Bears coaching staff is salivating, thinking about, okay, now this is a whole nother thing that we can add to our playbook where we can have designed runs for Justin and realize that he's got track speed and is going to take off.
And he's putting in the work. I spoke with a member of the media who said that he was in one weight room calling, saying, how do you turn the lights on in here? Like he's arriving early, he's staying late, he's putting in the work, because as he told us when he was drafted, I feel like I was born for this. And yet he also knows this is another thing I'm going to point out. He knows he's not there yet, right? He knows he's not ready yet. And there were a couple of things I saw on Friday where he missed through the ball and it was off, and the timings weren't there in just in 7-on-7, right? It wasn't like they were going crazy. The timing wasn't there. He didn't turn around and drop his head. What did we see from Trubisky for so many years? It was like he was frustrated because he was not getting it. And I think Justin gets it. Even when it isn't perfectly executed, he understands, and he's walking away from those things as like, okay, well, how can I make it work the next time? And I just didn't feel like Mitch ever did that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. And so that there are a lot of things that are going to happen in the preseason. Bill Lazor was very educational on Thursday, I guess it was Friday, of sort of detailing all the things that come into running one play smoothly as a quarterback and as a young quarterback, all the things you have to take care of, from number one, getting in the huddle, hearing the play call, reciting the play call to your teammates in the huddle in a way that makes them believe it's a good play call, getting up to the line of scrimmage, surveying the defense, surveying your guys. Are they lined up correctly? Is there a possible extra rusher coming? If so, who's going to protect them? Now, where are we going with the football after the snap? There's 150 things that a quarterback has to process in about a 6-second span that doesn't allow things to run smoothly all the time. And these are the hurdles that Andy has been through, and he knows how to do that. Justin's going to get there. He's going to get there in time. And so we'll see where it goes. There have been some bumpy moments. And what I've said this week to other people is that's why we can sort of use this first week of practice, probably the second week of practice, to table all those hypotheticals. The city of Chicago spent 6 months or 4 months, whatever it is, on hypotheticals. What if Justin Fields looks like Patrick Mahomes for 30 consecutive practices in all 3 preseason games? Will you still not start him? And Matt's always kind of been like, would love for that to happen, but, odds tell us it's not going to happen. So let's just play it. Look, like I always dream about winning Powerball, right? But when I make my vacation plans for 2022, it's not with the expectation that I'm going to have all the money I won from Powerball. We're going to use our budget and figure it out accordingly. We got to stay realistic in that regard. And I think finally getting a chance to see this with our own eyes for an extended period of time is a reminder of, okay, yes, this is exactly what the coaching staff told us it was going to be. It's not to say that anybody's worried about Justin Fields. It's just a natural part of the growth process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's been interesting to kind of see this, to lay our eyes on it, which is something something we haven't been able to do before, but just to see the dynamics of how the three quarterbacks are working together and taking those steps each and every day, and getting some analysis from Nagy as to what he's seeing, and not allowing the ups and downs of this early, because the build up to the season is such a slow boil, right? It's like so long to get to that point, and not getting too far. It's so long, and not getting too far ahead in any of that analysis and hypotheticals. I feel like we have to give them time. Let's put the pads on Monday, right? Monday they put the pads on. I mean, let's get to that point, and then see what the next steps are, and just take it one day at a time, but get on board with it all being in the right direction. But Dan, I want to go back to what you were talking about in-person interviews and how different it's been. Gosh, I had such joy chatting with Cole Kmet and getting to know his personality a little bit better. I feel much better about that draft selection after speaking with him in person. Sam Mustipher, great appreciation for him. Tashawn Gibson, these guys that were great on Zoom, but we never really got their personality. And now we're getting their personality because we're in person. Now, why you and I couldn't figure out how to do a video in person and get over that is still beyond me, but it's early in the preseason. We'll get there.
We got to figure it out. We got to figure out the setup. There's a lot of things happening at Halas Hall. We got to figure out where we go, how we do it. But to your point, there's a connection being established between the media and these players. And to their point, there's a connection being established amongst players that wasn't possible in 2020 when everything was restricted and COVID was smothering everything they did. And so there is something that can be built in training camp over 6 weeks with people in person doing things. One other thing that I think has been notable in the early stages of camp, and listen, you and I both know that over time you have to filter through training camp optimism, which is abundant in all 32 NFL cities, right? You have to make sure you know what's real and what's not. But there has been an effusive praise, oftentimes unsolicited, of Sean Desai by defensive players. And they continue to talk about the swagger that is returning to this defense and how much Sean makes them feel like Vic made them feel in terms of the confidence level that he's going to position them to use their skill sets to make big plays. This is a real thing right now. I will just tell that to the masses right now. It's a real thing right now, the belief in Sean Desai. Sean's never done this before. His results in games are going to speak louder than quotes in late July and early August. But you can tell that these players really appreciate his preparedness, his ability to put them in the right positions. And that energy that they're talking about is palpable. You can hear it when they talk about it. You can see it on the practice field. You can hear the way they're screaming when they make big plays out there. That energy is real, and it's not insignificant.
No, I totally agree with you. And I noticed it the most on Friday when Nagy did that one quick little drill where it was like fourth down. They had 4 chances. It was offense against defense. And just that energy on that defensive sideline. They lost, but just the energy of every play and how they would just laid something happen or broke up a pass. I noticed it, and I noticed the way that Sean was talking and stopping with individual players to talk about something they had been working on or a drill they had been working on. And you're right about the praise for him. And even Jeremiah, gosh, I wish I could pronounce his last name, but the guy who came over from Denver, thank you. There it is. There it is. He came over from Denver and knew Vic, and it was like, okay, so are you seeing similarities? And he was like, absolutely. Like, it's almost like he's hearing that same echo of the way Vic was. And we all know how I feel about Vic Fangio. So I think there's a lot of excitement and reason to be excited about the direction that defense is going to and getting that swagger back. Last year was not good enough by their own admission. They all said it. Khalil Mack said it this week. I can be better. That's a scary thought. And I think that it's a good thing for the defense to start this way.
Khalil Mack said, I can be better amongst a lot of S-bombs that he dropped into his press conference with us. That was fun to hear Khalil curse a little bit, but he also said, get to the damn quarterback. And that's what they're paying him to do. And that's what we're hoping that this Bears defense can position themselves to do, to have a little bit more fun. I'm giddy. I'm excited that we've got a week under our belts. I'm giddy that there's a lot more of it ahead. It's just been a rejuvenating week in so many ways. We started this entire video on this very depressing, melancholy note. I'm going back to my giddiness with what's happening with the Bears, because I think it's going to be fun even though we're not expecting this team to go real far in 2021, it's going to be fun to learn about the arc of the quarterback situation, the defense, et cetera. We've got something to cover here, and there's preseason games just around the corner. Football's back, Dionne.
I know. I didn't even mention that I'm on location in the ABC 7 Sports office, giving you a behind-the-scenes look because we're cramming in this video. It's important enough.
I didn't even know you worked. I thought you just sat at home and did videos with me all the time.
I wish that could be my life, Dan. Maybe one day.
Hopefully we can figure out some spot in Halas Hall to do this side by side at some point. We're working on it, audience. We're working on it.
We are working on it.
It's out before we get to the regular season, maybe even sooner than that.
Well, work in progress. But I believe Monday practices pads. Am I misremembering? I think that's right.
I think they're eligible Monday. I think Matt Nagy thinks that the first time they're going to go into pads is at Soldier Field, going down to Soldier Field on Tuesday. There you go.
I can get excited for that.
There's a reason for fans to get in the car and drive down to the lakefront and check it out. First padded practice.
Yeah. Bears back at Soldier Field. Fans should be too. He's Dan. I'm Dionne. We'll see you guys next time.